Hello, everyone, and welcome to this particular workshop. This is going to be a live stream. Do excuse me. My name is Will, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a little check behind the scenes, and we're going to get started. Just going to make sure everything's displaying correctly. I do hope the levels are fine, and I can see myself. I'm using a dual screen setup. Alright guys, I hope everything is functioning okay. This is a slightly different format, as you can tell. But yes, welcome to this particular stream. And what we're going to do is a very interesting topic, in my opinion. I feel that ever since I embarked on learning .NET C#, there have been a lot of very mysterious, should I say, parts of the language, some really fascinating pieces of functionality that I've always kind of even enjoyed not knowing about. And then when I learn about such functionality, it only deepens my appreciation for the class, method, object, or whatever kind of object it might be. In this particular case, it happens to be delegates, and we're going to look at what delegates are, how to use them. Surprisingly, delegates are not as, should I say, complicated as you might think, especially on a high level. However, I would consider this a more intermediate level territory, as using them in very compelling ways does take a bit of experience, should I say, a little bit of know-how. But we're going to take it to the fundamentals. So welcome to the C# Walkthroughs workshop. We're looking at understanding delegates. So I'm going to go back to the first screen, and hopefully everything is functioning all right. Just going to quickly check my YouTube live stream dashboard, and it's looking all right so far. So what we're going to do, let's start off with what are delegates. We're gonna look at what a delegate is, and to aid me in that, what I'm gonna do is get the MSDN article. I found this quite useful actually. Using delegates, C# programming guide. The links to this resource should be in the description. And so let's just kind of read this first paragraph and kind of understand what's going on. I'm going to just zoom in slightly here if I can. So a delegate is a type that safely encapsulates a method similar to a function pointer in C and C++. Unlike C function pointers, delegates are object-oriented, type-safe, and secure. So this is quite an advantage when you consider the ways that we can use delegates. I mean, for starters, the whole idea of encapsulating functionality does bring to mind interface functionality, and I do believe that some of that is actually mentioned here. If I just quickly do a search for interface, so the functionality, as it says down here, the functionality is similar to the encapsulation interfaces provide, and that sort of encapsulation is simply just this idea that one scope of the project doesn't need to be concerned with the implementation logic of another scope. That's where the some of the security strengths of encapsulation comes in, you know, respective to interfaces, and in this case delegates. And you can and another thing that you can do, I'll go back to the other screen so we can keep track with the agenda. So I'm going to just cross that off. Another thing we can appreciate in terms of the advantages of using delegates. We're going to hop to the code in a hot minute. But just before we get to that, I did lose my trail of thought, I am not going to lie. But I believe I was going to say something along the lines of, we can pass delegates as objects or arguments into methods. That's another strength of the whole type of delegates. And we're going to kind of see how that forms, how that works here. So without much further ado, let's get started. So what are we going to do first? I'm first going to just get my notes. I have an example project of screen that I prepared, that I wrote, and I'm going to be using that as reference of screen. So what are we going to do? First, let's work with some values. Let's work with some variables. I'm going to say public int input a. I'm going to give that a value of 2. And I'm going to make like 4 of these. As such. But let's change that to input B, input C, and input D. And let's change these values so they represent different values. So let's say like 10 and 12. Okay, so we have 4 inputs over there, as you can see. And the idea here is that the inputs themselves, it just kind of represents the arbitrary style of, the arbitrary nature of the data you might be working with. So the underlying concept we are going to explore further as we proceed. So the next thing we want to do, I'll just cross this off the list. We want to declare our delegate. We want to declare our delegate. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to make some space on field level, on the field scope. I'm going to say public. I'm going to use the delegate keyword, as you can see there. The delegate keyword, I'm going to zoom in slightly, just hopefully it's fairly readable. I'm going to make this of int type, and I'm going to call it calculation. And this is going to accept 2 arguments in its constructor. Let's make it x, as you can see. So when you consider what the whole idea, the concept of a delegate, we are basically passing a functionality as we would a variable. Okay, so the whole idea of passing a parameter into our delegate really does tie home to the utilization of passing by a parameter certain values in different methods. So we're going to continue with this, and we're going to see how this all comes together. So we've gone ahead and we've declared our delegate. It's going to be quite an arbitrary example. This is not going to be a any particular application you'll find in the real world. This is just to demonstrate how to syntactically and functionally understand delegates. So I'm going to make a function. I'm going to make it a public void. Let's actually make it an async void. Oops. I'll just go back. Async void. And I'll give a very generic name, set delegate. I would like to make that capital. Okay. I'm going to go quickly check my OBS section, make sure I'm on the right screen so you can see what I'm typing. Excellent. I hope I didn't just open another application on accident. Anyway, let's have some brackets to encompass our implementation. Now the next thing we want to do is to actually instantiate the delegate. So we've gone ahead and declared the delegate here, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and make a comment. Delegate declaration. I want to instantiate the delegate. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say calculation. That's our delegate right there. And I'm going to give a name to this instance of the delegate. I'm going to call it calc. And let's leave it as like this for now. I'm going to have another one. Calculation. Let's call it calc_2. But of course, what we want to actually do is assign this to some kind of other functionality. Because remember, what is the whole idea behind a delegate? Because the whole idea of the delegate is that we want to pass a function as a variable. There's different advantages to this, which you can read some more in your spare time on the official MSDN documentation. For now, we're going to go through how this actually works practically in C#. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go back into the code, and I am going to make a function. If I make some space, let's make another function. Public int result, which also takes as a parameter int. We're going to call this x, and int, we're going to call this y. And let's give it the brackets for the implementation. And we're going to put a return keyword. Okay. Just rectify this. And if we go ahead and grab this result, and we actually assign result to calc, or rather calc to result, we assign this function result to calc. So calc is given the value of result. A little bit of a mouthful there. Okay. Don't worry too much about this error. We don't have an int value to return just yet. But notice how the signature of the delegate, or rather the signature of the respective function, matches the signature of the delegate that we have created. And that's quite important. You want to, as far as I'm aware, you do want to make sure that your delegate has the same signature as the respective functionality that it's going to basically be passed to represent. And you find this sort of convention as well with interfaces, as you know, as you may or may not know, depending. When you implement, when you want to create an interface, they hold, they can be considered like a contract, and they hold the not the implementation of a function, but they will hold the signature of a function, and that function will be out of scope, out of the immediate scope of the interface itself. Henceforth, the encapsulation concept, it will be in another scope, perhaps in another class, and all the implementation logic is actually in a separate class. So there you have that kind of should I say, the separation of concerns somewhat between the implementation and the signature of the calling functionality. So let's go back to our code. Let's get my notes up off screen. So we've gone ahead and declared our delegate. I'm going to check that off. We've instantiated the delegates. Now we want to call the delegate. We want to actually call our delegate. Okay? So if we call the delegate, we're going to be referring to implementation logic. So let's go ahead and place some implementation logic. So I'm going to say int result. We're going to make a variable up called result of type int is assigned 0. I'm going to make this fairly obvious, hence why the code is kind of verbose, but I think it's just good so I can really drive home the moral of the principle of what I'm trying to do here. Result is assigned x plus y, some sort of arithmetic operation, and we're going to return the value result, as you can see. Where am I here? Okay, that's excellent. So now that we want to actually call the first delegate, so we have one delegate, should I say, and one delegate calculation and two instantiations of the delegate. Let's go ahead and call this delegate calc. So I'm just referring to my notes very quickly. Very quickly referring to my notes. Do bear with me. And I'm going to make some space. And I'm going to write the following. Calc. And that represents the function result, as you can see here, result. So calc, and then as you can see, we need to pass some arguments for the signature. So as you can see, the error there is no argument given that corresponds to the required parameter x over here. Here's the parameter. So we're going to enter the argument here. So for x, why don't we pass our arbitrary value input a, which is 2. And then for input y, or rather for the second argument, let's put input b as such. Okay. And then let's go ahead and call the second instantiation of the delegate. But this time we'll pass input c, we'll pass input d. Now let's monitor the results. So let me say something here. Call the delegates. And in order to do this, I'm using a UWP front, so I think a good idea will be a nice control. We don't even have to leave this file. We don't have to consult the XAML designer. Let's just go ahead here and say content dialog. Let's call it dialog, and I'm going to construct this, as you can see. And let's go ahead and put the content of the dialog. And the content of the dialog will be the result here displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and cast this as a string. and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing underneath. But before I do that, I'm going to display the content dialog box, but I'm going to give it a button as well. I'll say like dialog primary, where am I? Primary button text, and I'm going to say something like proceed. Oops. Excellent. And I'm going to display the dialog box. Excellent stuff. And yeah, let's go ahead and do the same thing for our second instantiation of the delegate. So I'll go ahead and change things. So _2, I'll adjust this to input C, input D. And let's hope this all comes quite well together. So since we have the calling of the delegate here, we can get rid of this. And let's have a look at what's going on so far. Hopefully everything will run smoothly. We have no syntactical errors, it seems. So I'm going to go ahead and run this in debugging mode. Ooh, I see something here. I didn't, yes. I have 2 semicolons. I don't know if that counts as a syntactical error. The precompiler will probably take care of this, but something I just noticed now. But yeah, so I'm going to wait for that to load. And this should be fairly interesting. We should see, hopefully, if everything goes smoothly, if we don't get an error, a dialog box, a content dialog box, and some number in there. And once we see what this value is displayed, it's going to really make a little bit more sense as to what we're doing. It's very simple right now. This is the fundamentals after all. We are basically just calling the delegate. We're not even passing it into any kind of function. We're going to do that straight afterwards. Just waiting for UWP to load. So I'm going to go back to the other screen. Shouldn't take too long now, as long as Visual Studio is doing what it has to do. And while we wait, I might as well just cross that one out. I think the window's about to pop up. There we go. Just off screen. And drag it over. Oh, by the way, guys, if the stream goes offline, or if I get some kind of I lose battery power and the stream cuts off, I'll do my best to come online as soon as I can to finish this up, because this is not going to be a very long demonstration, if I'm being honest with you guys. So we're going to go back to the screen, and it is blank, which is not the best thing, and of course it's blank. I tend to make this mistake. So obviously we haven't called our function setDelegate. So what I'm going to do is just close this. So we just have a blank screen. I'm going to call our functionality. For simplicity's sake, I'll call setDelegate in the constructor. And I'm going to run in debug mode. I'm going to run with debugging. And we're going to observe the results. So we're going to do that. Let's have a look at the documentation while we're waiting. So as you can see, we have done our declaration as it shows here. Create a method for the delegate. Our one, I believe, is called result. And over here, we've instantiated our delegate as this example shows. And we are at this stage where we're just simply calling the delegate, as you can see. And let's just read a bit of this while we wait for UWP to load. Delegate types are derived from the delegate class in .NET. Delegate types are sealed, they cannot be derived from, and it's not possible to derive custom classes from delegates because the instantiated delegate is an object. It can be, this is quite important, and this is what really sets delegates as an important tool. It can be passed as an argument or assigned to a property. So very interesting stuff there. So UWP has loaded now. What I'm going to do is just drag the window over. So as you can see, we can see this content dialog box, and we see the number 6 up there. What does that 6 actually represent? If I scroll up, if you care to notice, input A is 2, input B is 4, and the logic in result is X plus Y. What are we passing into result? Well, as you can see, we're not explicitly calling result as we would call a method, but there are two references over here. If I just go and click this, they're on lines 43 and 44. So as you can see here, it looks a little bit different to how you would call a method, but on lines 43 and 44, we have the method calls being assigned to our delegates over here. So now we have the functionality of result encapsulated, and it is now being called, as you can see on line 48 over here. Calc, input A, input B is being passed, and I'm showing the content via this dialog.showAsync. So if I go ahead and hit proceed, we'll see now the number 22. Where did this come? So we have our second instantiation of our delegate over here, calc2, but the only difference is that we're passing different arguments into the overload of our result of our delegate, which in effect we are passing the numbers 10 and 12 into our result functionality. And what does that do? It actually adds and returns x and y, which would be 10 plus 12, hence why we have the value 22. So hopefully this kind of paints the picture. So we're gonna go ahead and start to wrap things up with the final bits. We're gonna pass the delegate as an argument to a method. So I'm gonna just go ahead and refer back to my notes. And I'm going to scroll down. First I'm gonna get rid of this second semicolon. Let's go down here. And let's say public async void generic process. Very, very imaginative name here, I'm aware. And let's say calculation. So it accepts as a type a delegate, and this delegate is called args, just for the sake of, no pun intended, argument. Had to go there. All right, let me just quickly check my OBS off screen. Yep, I'm on the right screen so far. I'm going to zoom in ever so slightly. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Let's go ahead and create another content dialog. Content dialog, we're going to construct it. I'm going to say something like dialog, and I'm going to create the primary button text. Let's also make it say proceed. And we're going to simply call our delegate. So we're going to say, I'm going to just copy these two lines because it's a little bit faster. I probably would have been done if I just did it. So dialog content, as you can see here, we're passing input A and input B. But this time, we are not calling, we're actually passing we're passing our delegate as args. And then we are passing input A and we're passing input B. Okay. Which is quite fascinating. I just had a thought here, but let's just run through things and see what happens. So let's go ahead firstly. We're going to call generic process. Let's call it at the end here. Where should I place this? Let me just have a quick look. Place at the bottom of set delegate. And we're going to pass calc, our first instantiation of our delegate. And I'm going to run the program with debugging enabled. And that shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Running with debugging just simply means that there are certain files, I believe they're called symbol files, and they're used to help with the debugging process. If you load without debugging, it just means, of course, you can't step through your program via the debugger built into Visual Studio, but as a result, usually your program is deployed and runs a little bit faster as a UWP program. So just gonna wait. This shouldn't take too long. Let's go ahead and consult MSDN, see if there's anything interesting here. Of course, there are more, should I say, advanced use cases of delegates the more you dive into it. MSDN is a great primer into that world, as you can see. And our UWP session is loaded, so I'm going to minimize the browser. I'm going to wait for the program to load. Let's put this around the side. So again, we have 6, which represents our the first call here, input A, input B, which is 4 and 2 added together via the results functionality. Then we have 22, which again follows the same workflow, but the only thing that changed was the inputs arguments, input C and D, which is 10 and 12, which results in, when they're added together, as you can see by the results functionality, 22. Let's proceed. Finally, we see 6 again, because what have we done? We placed into the parameter, as a parameter, we have args here. And what we're passing as an argument for this calc, which is our first instantiation of our delegate. So, you know what? I'm actually curious. What would happen if we pass calc 2? My guess is that we will end up with 22 because we are passing these two, the overloads have changed value. So it'd be quite interesting to just kind of have a look at that. And as you can see, this whole separation of concerns really does help for the program to be a lot more workable, keeping things, should I say, nice and safe, quite rather secure if you ask me. If any particular functionality needs to be changed, then you have, say, the encompassing implementation is in one scope and all the cores are in another scope. But again, the strength of utilizing this concept of encapsulation via delegates is the fact that you can pass these methods as objects, as variables, and if I'm not mistaken, properties. We can just quickly hop to the MSDN. MSDN will save very nicely. Should be towards the top. Can't remember. Do a quick Control F. So again, delegate types are derived from the delegate class. It's not possible to derive custom classes from delegates. Because the instantiate delegate is an object, it can be passed as an argument or assigned to a property. So a lot of advanced stuff and some compelling functionality you can do with this sort of approach. So just waiting for UWP again. Shouldn't take too long, I believe. Okay, I thought it might have been up already off screen, but it was not. And this should not take too long. Just have a quick look. Pass delegate as an argument to a method. So I'm going to go ahead and cross this out actually, because we've just about done that. Just checking up on the stream. As we're waiting here, I'm going to just shout out. I'm going to shout out a very interesting program that is launched. It is my one-to-one developer mentoring scheme. Feel free to register your interest. And there's more information if you visit the website. Link should be in the description. You can find out more on the top link, Learn C# Masterclass. It has information about this too. I won't spend too much time talking about this right now, so I want to focus on the program, but just a quick shameless plug. And yeah, this is kind of taking its time actually. It's quite interesting, fascinating. Let me see if there's any errors. It might actually be off screen. Oh, fascinating. I'm not too sure what's going on with that. Continue to wait. It's probably off. It might be off screen. Very interesting. Let me just restart the program. Save that. Just hope it loads swiftly. Here we go. I'm not too sure what was going on there, but here we are. Just wait for UWP to load up, and then we are going to observe the results, and then we're going to wrap up the stream. So we have here, let me just double check OBS, that looks fine to me. We have 6, we have 22. Now, I'm not too sure what the next one will show, but I'm guessing it might be 22. Let's have a quick look. Did I hit proceed? And it's actually 6, so my bad about that. I made a mistake. So that has actually been passed the value of 6. So I'm going to close that. Just want to have a little explore about that actually, because I did actually expect that to be 22. So let's just go ahead and save that. Then go to generic process. And of course it's going to be 6 because I did not update the arguments here. So it would appear to me that because we have, we are indeed passing the delegate functionality, but what is displayed ultimately here is the inputs that are passed into this overload. If I were to change this, if I were to update that to input C, input D, then I believe that should result in 22. So let's go ahead and check it out, check out the program. And then we shall wrap up this stream. And as you can kind of glean from this fundamental look at delegates and how they work, syntactically and functionally, you can then use this as a building block. You can use the practicalities of this workshop as building blocks for you to create even more compelling, secure, and robust applications. Because the more you know, the further you go. So that's the case. That is actually the case. So I'm just going to wait for UWP to load up. It's taking a hot minute. As we can see, the program's just about to come up. Here we are. Okay. Alright, so this should take a few seconds. So we have 6, proceed to 22, proceed, and again 22 as you can see because I've updated C and D over there. And that will wrap. This actually brings us towards the end of this workshop. Guys, I'd like to really extend my thanks for those of you who have tuned in. This will be on the channel as a video. It will be archived. And yes, once again, do check out the link below in the description if you're interested in the one-to-one C# mentoring program, where I myself will be mentoring you in C#.net from the ground up. It doesn't matter where your skill level is. You can sort of see it as, I don't want to use the word a shortcut. It's more like a catalyst to get you to where you need to be faster, to have someone mentoring you about C#.net, and also have the Learn C# Masterclass program in the works. And I actually have some more exciting stuff. There's a Telegram newsletter which I have launched, link in the description, where regularly I'll be releasing posts that you can read, that you find some interesting tidbits, tips, and insights into the world of development with a particular focus to C#.net. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I bid you all a great day. I hope the levels were fine. I hope you like the format, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care. So I'm just gonna go off screen. See you guys later. Let's go to the Edge browser. Just gonna terminate my stream. Take care, guys. Bye bye.